play the game. Time to play the game. It's time.
Welcome, everybody, to Caturday Checkdown. My name is Jordan Mathis. After a very disappointing night in Kroger Field, I'm here with Braden, as always. Braden, I know we're going to get into this football game, but, man, I'm glad to see that we both dressed in black for Kentucky football's funeral. Braden, how you doing, buddy?
Not well, my friend. It was a very rough weekend of football. I don't have the I don't have the brown paper bag for the 0-16 Browns and Lions, but I do have a paper bag to insinuate the fan base. So
there is a hole in it, YouTube. Please don't ban us.
Go ahead. What?
I said there is a hole in it, YouTube. Please don't ban us.
Yes, there's a hole. I'm not trying to, whatever. I'm not doing well, man. I mean, it was a rough weekend for Kentucky, and then also I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, and that should summarize everything in a few sentences.
Well, yeah, and then you're right on it. I think that's probably one of the worst duos. I'm a Titans fan, so seeing the Kentucky game Saturday and then following that up with the Will Levis performance there at the end of the game is like, man,
Are you on your knees with your hands on your head?
Yeah, exactly. Braden, there's a lot I want to get into tonight. We talked to, actually, believe it or not, we talked to Eric Wolford tonight. I don't know why they had him on the hot seat with the media today, but they did. Talked to Bush Hamden. I want to get into some of that, but first, I think we need to jump right into this game, man. Saturday night was probably the epitome of Kentucky football as I know it. A game in which Kentucky was the more skilled team and just didn't play like it. A lot of bonehead mistakes, a lot of things just not going Kentucky's way. And it was like everything I remember growing up and watching as a fan of the program. Braden, what were some of your biggest takeaways as far as like the turnovers, the fumbles, the everything, I don't even want to talk about offensive line right now because that's something that's going to be a huge topic. And for our listeners, we didn't really plan what the heck was going on this episode because I wanted to speak right from my heart. Braden, I know you want to do the same.
All systems failure. It's been, 3 days since the game, and I still don't know what happened. If you listened last week while Jordan was out, I was very confident in Kentucky to win on Saturday, and I almost got the score right, just flipped. It was 30. I predicted 31-13. It was 31-6. Just it is just that the wrong team won the game. I didn't see it coming, to be honest. Because I still believe this. South Carolina is not a good football team. But I guess neither is Kentucky. And that's just where we are right now.
It's funny that it's like that first touchdown drive in which the receiver ran a post midfield and another receiver ran another route, and J.Q. Hardaway was playing like a shell zone defense. It was straight zone. And for whatever reason, he followed his route into midfield, leaving a wide open touchdown pass. I feel like after that, it was like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know. And then they came down, kicked the field goal, made it 10-zip. Like, the way Kentucky was trying to move the football, it was working, right? Demi Singleton had himself a first half to remember. And it's just like they abandoned the run. And I don't know. Stoops alluded after the game having some issues with maybe some of the play calling. But, and this is maybe a sore subject right now, but eventually the offensive play calling complaint is we've had enough, right?
Yeah. We went through with Eddie Gran. running the ball too much. We went with Liam Cohen that we were too cute and not running the ball enough. And then we had like the 1 year of Rich where we don't really know what the hell was going on, and then already Bush Hamden some some animosity there. It seems like I'm tired of the excuses. I know it's only game 2, but I think a lot of questions need to be asked. And really the same questions that were starting to be asked at the end of last year that kind of faded away once Kentucky beat Louisville. I think those questions should already be coming back to life.
Braden, we talked about the offseason. We talked about Kentucky needs to win in week 2, right? The biggest thing was take care of business against South Carolina. Whatever happens the ensuing week happens, and we can live with the results as long as we see that a team has fought. A team did not fight last Saturday wearing blue. Like, there was no fight at all. There was no juice on the sidelines. Mark Stoops had no juice in his coaching. Like, everything was just from beginning to end was a failure. And it's like, you pretty much spend, at least Braden, you and I are around the same age. Like, the whole time Stoops has been here, you're watching this team progress, right? And then you get to 2018 and you have the season that we're like, this can never be done again. 2019 comes, you lose quarterback, whatever. I don't need to go down the history. You guys know that are watching. Like, you know the history of Kentucky football, at least in Mark Stoops' tenure. Ever since Kentucky has climbed to the top, it has slowly went back down to where it has, and it hasn't gotten to 2-10. And we'll talk about I want to talk about some of the comments people are making online, because I feel like that's probably where a lot of my anger is coming from anyway. But we've had enough. I am to the point where it's like, I win in 2 games, it's 2 games a year, but something's got to give, right? Like, the SEC's only getting stronger, and Stoops is saying some stuff in pressers that's like, man, why are you saying that? And it sounded a lot like our basketball coach last year. It is sounding like the more time that he gets in front of a camera is hurting himself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we felt last year. And I hate to say it because I like the man. I liked Calipari. I liked covering both of them, and I still like covering Mark Stoops. But something's not right with him, and I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, or what the case is. But he just doesn't look like the same coach that we've had here for the past 12 years.
Well, I think the problem is that Mark Stoops just doesn't want to be here. I think it's a very poorly kept secret that he wanted to go to Texas A&M, and obviously that fell through, and he ended up back in Lexington. And I think it's showing that maybe that same energy just isn't there anymore. Kind of similar to Cal in some aspects, because Cal had opportunities to go other places. He
said publicly he wished he would have went to UCLA.
Yeah, I was going to say he may or may not have wanted to go to UCLA, and then even really back in 2015, he may have wanted to go to the Cavs. Shout out to the Harrison twins for that. But the fan base brought the energy, and the team just did not match it, and that's coaching staff, players, all the way down the line. And I hate it because that atmosphere, like in the pregame and then in the first quarter, or while the game was close, was an amazing atmosphere. It was on national TV. You could hear that stadium on the TV. I watched from home again. It was awesome. And then just to see that poor of a product put onto the field, really after an entire fall of being able to scout, because I'm not sure how much scouting they really did on Southern Miss. They've had a long time to look at the South Carolina team, and to come out and play like that and just playing undisciplined. The offensive line you mentioned, and how we were told that their attitude was going to be different, and this was going to be back to the big blue wall. Just
Well,
it's just not there, man, and I hate it. And you're right. I love Mark Stoops. He because let's see, I'm 21 years old. He's been here for he got his first year was in 2013, so he's been here 11 years. Mark Stoops is all I know in Kentucky football, and I love the man. He's who I grew up on watching UK football. It in the same way that I thought of Cal. It's hard to imagine someone, and we can have this conversation later in the season, I'm sure, if it's needed. But it's almost like at the point where the two are kind of starting to or getting ready to crash into each other, and I think it's time. And I know it's really early to say that, but I think it's time.
And there are several variables that I think are going to affect what happens in the coming weeks. I think, the $40 million buyout is that's something that you're not going to be able to overcome.
Yeah.
If anything does happen, it's going to be at the end of the season. I just don't.
And we saved money from Cal not getting that buyout. Not getting buyout Stoops.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Because right now, I just don't think it happened. Off season, yes, it very well could be. But when it comes down to it, we talked to Eric Wolford today. Like I said, we talked to Bush Hamden. So some of the key things really is that I took away as I left that press conference was that for the offensive line, Wolford said that he talked to Eli Cox and Marcus Cox Sunday, and he said he didn't have to get on them at all. He said it was a mutual. Everybody was, and Marcus said he said they were pissed off. So, it's good to hear that offensive line hasn't given up. Now, Saturday we'll get into that, but they might have some even more struggles because that defensive line's looking fierce. Georgia's secondary, maybe the best they've had there in the Kirby era. Just elite. That safety plays some nickel. But at the end of the day, I don't want Kentucky to throw in the towel because this is a season that everybody's been waiting for. You mentioned the excitement for this team. Last 2 weekends ago now, the waiting 2+ hours outside in the pouring rain, lightning to watch that team play. Max Harrison said that he wasn't expecting that, and it really gave him a new perspective of the fan base. Mm-hmm. Just that they were that excited to see that team come out of the tunnel, but it's so weird because you go from that in years past, you have kind of November hits, and you start to see the downfall.
Yeah,
this is the second week of the season.
Yeah,
so. Yes, it is different because you get so excited throughout the offseason. First game hits, Kentucky covers by 3, and the game's not even done in the third quarter. And then, so, the morale's up. A rivalry that you have to win, and that you're the better team. That other coach on the sideline is probably the most annoying coach in the SEC minus Eli Drinkwitz, and you lay an egg.
Yeah.
That will kill a fan base quicker than anything else, and I'm sure it's probably hurt that the mentality of that team. So, how do you go from how do you say, okay, you know what, let's focus on the next game, which is the number one team against the number one team in the country.
Yeah, well, one thing I do want to mention since you kind of briefly brought it up. Mark Stoops is 0-3 against Shane Bieber since the sunglasses and dances comment. So that's not a good look on Stoops at all. And Beamer's using, and just anybody but Shane Beamer, man. Anybody but Shane Beamer. But yeah, it's unfortunately, and I do have some positive takes that I will get to eventually, but to kind of keep on the Debbie Downer side for a second. In the past, it seems like whenever Stoops' team like Stoops teams, and more so later in the year. But whenever they get hit with adversity, they kind of just fall off the wagon, unfortunately. And but thankfully in years past it's happened later in the year, so you've kind of already built up a pretty good record, and then at the end of the year you're still pretty satisfied. Like you said, this happened in week 2, and your next game is against like the most dominant team in college football. So things could get really ugly here, like really, really ugly. And
Are we thinking 4 wins?
I'm not there. I'm not there yet. Here, let me say my positive outlook real quick on this. Stoops and this team. Now these are very slim, or at least in my eyes, very slim chances. But this team still has 2 opportunities to kind of right the wrong from Saturday. Obviously, this Saturday, you're not winning the game, but in a very hypothetical situation, if you were to pull off the upset of the century and you're 2-1 and you beat Georgia, all is forgiven, I believe.
Yeah. Obviously.
Or here in a few weeks at Ole Miss. If you win that game once again, you kind of probably expected to be 3-2 anyway, just with the loss to probably Georgia and Ole Miss instead of Georgia and South Carolina. If for some way you could win that game and you're 3-2 heading into Vandy, I think you've kind of put the program back in a pretty good place. Neither of those things are likely to happen, though, so that's kind of where I am.
Let me ask you this: do you think Saturday? Of course, I'm not sure Kentucky scores a touchdown, and we'll dive into that a little bit more.
Or a point.
But do you think Kentucky at least shows fight? Like that's my main concern, because it's like in the Kirby era, that game has been kind of it's been a physical game. Like it's a game that it doesn't come down to the wire, but like you're still down a couple touchdowns rather than 50 points. Like last year was the outlier a little bit. I think that I'm not sure what happened. You had Brock, you had Brock Bowers and a really good, like elite offense that they haven't really had recently. They haven't had like before that. Yeah. But this is a different offense. I think it's still really, really good. Don't get me wrong, but I could still see a situation in which this game is. You can see some fight from the first quarter, maybe until the third quarter, where skill and depth kind of start to take over the game.
Yeah. I expect to see fight. And, well, I'm just saying that because I don't think they can show anything else. I mean, you have to. I don't think they have a choice. They have to show fight on Saturday. I could see a situation where this game is similar to 2 years ago, where the final score is like 14-6. Or, maybe not that close, but it's like a really low-scoring game.
What was the COVID score? Wasn't it like 14-0 or something?
14-3 or so.
14-3, yeah.
I could see it being similar to one of those 2 games where it's a really low-scoring and at least, you showed fight. Because this past Saturday, I know the scoreboard says South Carolina scored 31 points, but really outside of the blown coverage that you already mentioned, I thought the defense played fairly well. There were some times, but I still feel like they played a fair game. Obviously, a lot better than the offense. So I think there's hope on the defensive side. Offensively, there's a lot to fix.
Brock, not Brock. I called you Brock.
Don't call me
Braden.
I don't want to be called. I don't want to be named Brock after Saturday.
Well, that actually transitions into my next conversation. I want you to, first off, what was your confidence with Brock Vandagriff going into the season? Like, give me just a grade.
I was like at a percentage. Okay. That's like a B. It's like a 80%.
Okay. I think that's a C in Kentucky, but we'll roll with it.
Well, Mercer. Well, okay. Well, whenever I went to school in Mercer County, an 80 was a B. So So in my head, an 80 is a B. But if it's, I think now it's like 80 what?
82, 83.
82. So an 82% B, 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10, whatever. 6 out of 10.
So what's it at right now?
What?
What's it at right now?
D plus.
Wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. So,
you look terrified.
Now I know, and I've gone back and watched some of the game, and I do think that when you're not watching it in live action, things can dictate how you view certain areas of the game. And I don't know that. Yes, he made some mistakes, right? But don't forget, we're a season removed from watching Devin Leary play under center. And I think, it's not fair to compare the two.
Devin Leary looked a lot better in South Carolina than Brock did.
That's true. But at the same time, that offensive line last year was at least a little bit better. It played a little bit better in that game than and South Carolina didn't have number 6 on the outside. So, two different games.
Yeah.
But I mean, you go back and watch it, and I feel so bad for Brock because he just did not get time. And that was you could tell that was a point of emphasis in practice when we spoke earlier, just because, for one, why would Eric Wolford ever come to the podium when he's never? I have not seen Eric Wolford at the podium until today.
Yeah.
That was a vocal point. Stoops, the staff, they want the fans to know that that's something that we have to work on moving forward. And that's the key focal point and why Kentucky may not have played as well as they should have Saturday. So, it's good to have some self-accountability. Yeah. But right now we're pinning Brock versus the offensive line. And I don't think the receivers played well either. Danke had a nice snag that, that possession didn't really go far either. Barryon Brown didn't get a single catch. And, Bush Hamden was asked about that today. Why? And he put it all on himself and said, maybe it is my fault. I take the blame for that because he's our main playmaker. Why do you think that is? There were some routes that he ran that I was like, he doesn't even look like he's going 100%. Yeah. Do you think that's just kind of how the game was going? Do you think he came into the game like a little bit down on it, or like what happened there?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think he may have gotten a little hobbled early in that game. He seemed to he didn't seem 100% throughout that game. He just didn't seem to have that same jump up off the line of scrimmage that he usually does. So that may have played a part in it. And then also, I mean, as far as Brock goes, well, let me say this first, because last week on the podcast, I talked about how I thought they were going to use Barryon Brown a lot because they did in week 1, and I figured that was just them getting ready to use him a lot as the season went on. So I was very surprised that he didn't get the ball, obviously. But yeah, as far as Brock goes, yes, you're right. He was running for his life a lot. But with that, he also, on the occasions that he did have a chance to set his feet and throw, I feel like 90% of the balls he threw were 3 feet over the receiver's head. I remember he had a screen set up for Barryon that I think would have gotten would have actually set up pretty well, and it went yards over his head. And then he had Macklin once, and Macklin had to go up and make a pretty impressive catch just to gain a couple yards. And what should have just been like a routine play, might have gained a few more yards. The ball had been put in the right spot. And listen, it's his second game. It's his first full game starting in 3 years. And so I'm not calling for Gavin Wimsatt to come in or anything like that. I still think Brock can be a good quarterback. But Saturday is certainly not something that I would send off to the film guys of the NFL. Which I'll ask you this because I don't know. Did you find it a little odd that they sent Gavin Wimsatt to the podium
today?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So the reason I say no is because Tuesdays, Brock has class after a certain at time he's not available I think he goes to practice and goes like straight to class or something. I'm not really sure how it works. I just know Tuesdays are off limits for Brock when it comes to media.
Okay.
So, no, I didn't. And we saw Gavin play pretty early.
Yeah.
And I don't really think he played bad, but going,
He didn't really get a chance to do anything,
Yeah, all things considered.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at Brock, and do you think that having his previous tenure at Georgia, like, do you think that helps at all going into this game? Or just knowing the defense? I know that defensive end was roommates with Brock. Like, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of chirping back and forth between the two, but do you see any kind of advantages with that? Like, we talked to Bush today, and he said, he's given some pointers here and there. Of course, I don't think it's going to be a determining factor in the game just because they're so much more overpowered. But like, going into that game, how much does that preparation really matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think Brock, and then, on the flip side, I think Pop Dumas Johnson. I mean, they can obviously be helpful in game planning for Georgia, and I'm sure that they'll notice some things that they can then relay to the coaches throughout the game. So, I mean, there is a slight advantage in there, I guess, but I mean, to me, it's not substantial enough to be much of a talking point, especially nowadays, especially now that we've, kind of transitioned from the sidelines and their signs going like this and that and whatever to, having the headset really. Yes. I mean, it can't not be a slight advantage, but I don't think it's anything too significant.
Now, Braden. So it comes out, of course, that Kentucky takes care of business last Saturday, and College Game Day is going to be in Lexington this weekend. Mm-hmm. How cool would that have been, just with the storylines of Georgia and Kentucky, number one team, and kind of the buildup of the Stoops era is like, we have to beat Georgia. We're knocking on Georgia's door. We have their former quarterback, and then it comes out that they're going to South Carolina, and really the determining factor was that game Saturday, in which Kentucky on national TV now just got absolutely hammered.
Yeah. It's just another slap in the face to everything that went wrong Saturday. Because Paul Feinbaum said on Sunday that, the College Game Day was prepared to go to Kentucky. And that atmosphere would have been obviously
first time since 2007, by the way.
First time since 2007. And you know what? What makes it suck even more, South Carolina LSU was an awful game. I mean, nobody cares about. First of all, why is Game Day even going there? They can go to Alabama, Wisconsin, or they can go.
Well, I don't think they want to do 2 back-to-back Fox games.
Well, I mean, what? I mean, whatever.
They try and stay away from those Fox games as much as possible, but
I know. But I mean, I feel like Alabama. I mean, obviously, Alabama, Wisconsin's a much better game. Yeah. I mean, I know that Florida is not that great, but they could have gone to A&M in Florida. I mean, 2 programs that are probably a little higher tier than South Carolina. I don't know, just weird circumstances, man. But it would have been awesome to have Game Day at Kentucky. And obviously, I think people just would have loved to see Saban and Pat McAfee, really, those two, in particular.
So, that's that. Speaking of presentation and channels and everything, how good did the actual broadcast look? I went back and rewatched the broadcast of that they showed, but just because I wasn't at the game. But I went back and watched, and I was like, wow, this looks really cool. The build up of the game. You saw Brock kind of running through the tunnel before. It looked really cool on TV once you went back and looked. And I feel like that's just one of the advantages of the SEC signing with ABC, is because you're going to get a lot more of those.
Sure.
You're going to have, the time slots may not be as good. But the games that aren't on national TV, you're going to have a lot of flexes. Auburn, I think right now is a flex still. Tennessee, maybe, I want to say.
I think so, yeah. That sounds right.
And I know Louisville's still a flex game.
Well, at this rate, they might be flexed to freaking 10 a.m., but
might be flexed to the CW network.
Yeah, right. Well, so here's the thing though about that. You're right, because when you flip between stations, whenever you say you're watching I don't know, just regular ESPN, and then you switch to ABC on the same volume, the volume in ABC is so much louder. They have, I don't know if it's better sounds. I'm not a technological person by any means, but it seems louder without even turning up the TV. You just seem like you're in the stadium more on those kind of national TV channels. But and also,
I kind of want Tim's opinion on this.
Yeah, Tim, come in here. But also, I don't know what it is, but it just feels like a bigger game. Now, I hate the score bug. I hate that. But outside of that, obviously the announcers and just the camera work and because they had a lot of overhead shots of Kroger Field throughout the game. I thought that was really cool. It felt like a big game, which ironically Kentucky never wins those national TV games, so it kind of made sense. Is this how it's going to be now? Because we never won a CBS game, and if we're going to have a ton of ABC games, are we just going to get absolutely plastered in all of them? Because that's not
yes. And what's funny about that is I think a lot of fans are going to get plastered too.
Well, they might have to. If they want to get any enjoyment out of the day, they're going to have to.
Yeah. Speaking of getting plastered before games to enjoy the day, I think we have to talk. Well, first off, before we get into that, are you a little bit surprised at all the zone defense that Kentucky's been playing? We were kind of being led on. Braden, I know that it's kind of like the tight end deal, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking about man-to-man defense for, it feels like, since Stoops has been here, and that they just didn't have the personnel to do it. They finally had the personnel to do it, and they're not doing it. They even made it a point. Max Harrison, we talked to him during the off, or I guess fall camp, and he was like, we're 100%, we're going to be trusting our defensive, or we're going to be trusting our safeties more. We're going to be trusting our corners more. And so far, we have not seen that. Do you think that's something that they picked up early in the Southern Miss game? Because it was scoreless. They shut them out, and they were playing zone early against South Carolina.
I think it was very, which Stoops has a history of this, unfortunately, very playing not to lose, conservative play calling, and I hate that, but that's just what it seemed like to me. I really wish while Cal was still at Kentucky, Cal could have spoke to Stoops about playing man, and Stoops could have spoke to Cal about playing zone. But I guess they never had that conversation. They were too busy.
Hey,
huh?
Should we send them both the invite to this podcast real quick and get them both on, and maybe they can go back and forth on why one should try the other?
I think that's a great idea. I've been hoping to see that more too, and at this point, guys, fans, media, we're not going to see it. We'll just get over it. We're not going to see it. We're certainly not going to see it against Georgia, and we're not going to see it against Ole Miss.
No.
Maybe Ohio if you're lucky. Watch here in a couple weeks against Ohio. You might see some one-on-one coverages.
Speaking of that Ohio game, what's that crowd going to look like? Because 12:45 kick, at coming off what's going to be 2 losses, one that you probably shouldn't have lost, that I think is kind of set everybody off a little bit as far as the morale of fan base, whatever. Kentucky goes out, and I don't really know, even if they do fight a lot Saturday, I don't know. There's always that one game every year that, the fans kind of tune out of. And with it being a 12:45 kick, do you think this is the one, just given the circumstances?
Well, before we talk about the crowd of that game, when we said Georgia game, obviously.
Okay, so the Georgia game, I'm still confident that Kentucky fans are going to show up. I feel like, and there was another really respected media member today, and that that said this too, and I agree with. Like, they're a lot of talk. Kentucky fans are a lot of talk. Like, when it comes down to it, they'll say they're selling their tickets, but they do show out. Now, a couple of years ago, last time Georgia was in town, Georgia fans took over a little bit.
Well, honestly, if you go back to 2018, there's a lot of red in the stadium too, even for that big of a game.
And that's just Georgia fans' nature. Like, that's like I compare their fan base to Kentucky basketball's fan base is to the which like they'll just travel anywhere. And there's not really a whole lot you can do about it. Like, the funny thing about Kentucky fans is they'll buy season tickets to other schools' teams just to go to their game. Yeah. Like that's kind of the same way that Georgia fans are. Like, I respect it. They completely sold out Vanderbilt Stadium a couple of years ago and drank all their beer, and that's just kind of what they do.
Yeah. Well, all right. So here's what I'll say about both games crowd-wise. This Saturday, I think the crowd is. I think 35% of Kroger Field is going to be red. And I don't think that it's going to be full capacity.
Really?
Really.
You don't think the Georgia fans have a little bit of the? If you look at,
I think it'll be close, but it won't be full, and it'll be 35% Georgia.
If you look at some of the ticket prices right now, they're like in the 200s though.
Yeah, but I bet they're all being sold to Georgia fans.
And that might be true, but I think usually when you see that kind of increase, that means that it's a sellout. And I haven't looked. Braden, you can talk for a little bit. I'm gonna check and see if it's a sellout real quick.
Well, I'm sure it was a sellout prior to Saturday, and I'm sure that the tickets will show that it's been sold. But there will be people who end up not going. I just have a feeling. Like I said, I'm not saying that it's going to be a bad crowd. I don't think it'll be 100% full like it should have been. As far as Ohio goes, I'm thinking like in the 40,000 range as far as attendance goes for Ohio, maybe even 35. I don't expect a good crowd for that game at all.
Yeah, and it's funny you say this. There are a lot of resale tickets right now.
Are there really?
Oh yeah. They're all in the 200s, but
what percentage of that map is pink?
Let's see. I would say a good 15%. So
and you want to know all that is going to be red.
Yeah. It's not looking great for Saturday. I want to tell fans. I want them to show up and be loud and cheer on. Just be there. Just be there. If you've got tickets on sale right now, just take them off the market and go, and maybe bring somebody you wouldn't typically go with. Bring a kid's day that's never been to a Kentucky game,
and bring your worst enemy because and show them what not to do on a football field.
Yeah, yeah, fair point, and yeah, it's not going to be. Like I said, it's a full day of tailgating, so at least you get that aspect.
Oh, the fans will be very happy. Yeah, they won't remember.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. You don't get many of these. You don't get a stress-free game because, let's be real. As long as the players are safe and don't get injured, I think that Kentucky fans can at least relax a little bit, and maybe not the sense that we wish, but even in 2018, it was like this is the biggest game of maybe the modern era of Kentucky football. 2021 against Georgia, it's kind of the same thing down there in Athens. Like, I hate to say this game is a wash because we know it's going to happen, but in a sense, like, keep the players healthy and keep the morale up, and I consider that a win.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I certainly agree. And I hate to say this, but this is probably, which over the years, I haven't expected Kentucky to win this. This game in particular, but this is kind of the least confident I feel going into a Georgia game, probably since 2017.
It's funny. Even last year, I'll never forget. I was riding down with
I felt
some
confident. Last year's most confident I felt.
Yeah, Kentucky was undefeated at the time, and same thing. And I was riding down, and I don't think he would care if I say it. Dylan Ballard of the Sea of Blue. Like, I was sitting beside him going down to the stadium, and we were maybe 10 minutes away, and he's like, "We're gonna win this game. Like, Kentucky's gonna win." And I was like he was getting me juiced. Like, if I needed any juice, I was gonna come find him.
Sure.
And of course, that ended up being a big letdown. But yeah, I think you're right. I think 2017 was the last time that I kind of had no confidence in this game. But 2020, I guess maybe.
Yeah, that's fair. We were starting Joey Gatewood, and I think there was people who thought that starting Gatewood was going to really just make the offense explode, and it didn't.
Speaking of backups, what did you think? What did you think of Gavin Wimsatt this weekend?
I feel like he didn't have any time to do anything. I feel bad for the guy getting put in that situation, to be honest.
So we talked to him today, and he basically just said, like, someone asked, and I can't remember who it was that asked, has your passing improved since being at Rutgers? And he said yes. He said he thought it was like a major improvement that he's had. Do you think, like, what does he bring to the table? Because like I said, I think I went to one practice this past year. Just I was kind of out of the loop on things this year, but from what I saw, his passing, like, he threw some dots. If he can increase his, I guess, like if he can limit, like, just absolutely be able to pass the ball at a consistent basis, what does that bring to his game? Like, do you think there's a way he could get on the field a lot more this year? I mean, he played in the first quarter against South Carolina, like, when the game was still a game. So that tells me right there that the coaching staff has more to offer than just being a backup.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've known all along that they had intentions of playing him in certain moments. If things don't go, obviously we don't expect them to go good, but if things really go off the rails on this coming Saturday, that next week against Ohio, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw quite a bit of Gavin, just seeing what he could potentially bring to the offense. If our offensive line is going to be this bad in pass protection as they were last week, and don't get me wrong, Brock is an athlete with his legs, but he's not the athlete that Gavin is. You may have to look at that and just see what you have. So I expect to see him quite a bit in the game against Ohio, but I think Brock will get most of the run this Saturday.
Yeah, and that's something I want to see, just to build the confidence of Gavin, because I do think that I'm not sure where Brock's confidence is, but I think Gavin's is through the roof right now. Just like talking to him today, like his demeanor, the way he carries a conversation and is super positive and has a constant smile on his face, that tells me he's ready. I don't know what all that entails, or how much that carries over to game day or whatever, but I'd much rather have a quarterback that's ready for the moment than I'm not saying Brock isn't. I'm just saying, and this is way too early for a QB1 argument, because a lot of schools have that during fall camp, and I think Kentucky was lucky not to have that this year. Sure. And on this podcast, I think you probably remember me saying, Gavin and Bo threw some really good balls in fall camp.
Yeah.
And I wonder what that could look like because it's crazy to say, you can almost run the same offense under both quarterbacks. Gavin's a little bit more mobile, but Brock has the tendency to be able to take off if he needs to and gain some yards on his feet. So I don't think the switch up would be too incredibly far, as a schematic standpoint, but as we go further after the Georgia game, after the Ohio game, Can he contribute? Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, can he be a guy that is he ever a starter? I don't want to say that, but he could definitely. And I know a lot, and over the years, if you've listened in the past, I've always said that if you've got two quarterbacks, that means you've got
no
two quarterbacks. Yeah, exactly. So, and I firmly believe that. But like, I don't know. I feel like at the same time, Gavin may give something that Brock doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of wrapped up exactly what I was saying earlier. I mean, and here's the thing. I want to be in a situation where this is not a conversation. I hope Brock comes out this week and shows some promise against Georgia, and we can just move on with Brock and play the rest of the year. But if that doesn't happen, Stoops has to do what's best for this football team and what's going to make Kentucky's offense look the best. So, and maybe that's Gavin Winsett, maybe that's maybe it is Brock. I think it'd be nice to see if we can get Chip Trainin back, what he can add to the run game to kind of make things a little easier on the quarterbacks.
And I don't know how long that's. So I saw him today, and I mean he's still like Saturday. I know there were some reports, or not reports, but fans kind of saw him with that like cast on up to his elbow, and he's still doing that. But I did see him like he was competing, like he was still doing like catch drills and stuff with one arm. So I mean it's something to keep an eye on. But the thing is, and I'm sure this is going to be a topic of discussion here in the future, but I don't really know. Like, I still feel like we don't really have enough of a sample size from Brock. Yeah. We saw some bad balls. We saw maybe, and Van Hals had a really good synopsis of some of his plays. Go check him out on Twitter or X. But like, there was one play in particular. I remember a safety dropped, and I think it was Dane, I want to say, ran to, like, he was the only guy in position to make a play on the ball. And Brock stared him down and waited too long, of course, rolled out and got sacked by 3 different guys. But
he had that issue a lot week 1 as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's a slippery slope because you can't blame it all on one guy. The offensive line probably has played the worst game under the Mark Stoops era at Kentucky. If not, at least in the SEC play.
Sure.
The wide receivers. Dane was probably, I mean, he was probably the only guy that actually contributed that I remember that is like, made some pretty decent plays, and he had that one sideline grab. Let me go on a rant for a second, okay? I don't know why Barryon Brown isn't on punt return. Like, it baffles me. What was the SEC Special Teams Player of the Year last year? And his return, how many did he return? 3 touchdowns last year, punt and kick for touchdown?
I can think of 2.
There was a third one. I know there's a third one.
I can think of 3 total, but I can think of but yeah.
Well, anyway, you get my point. You get my point. I get your point. Why not have them there? In fact, and Jamori Macklin, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what went into that decision, but first punt return of the game, he muffs and could have really cost it Kentucky. And I don't want to put that on one play or anything like that. What was that?
I said I don't think it mattered.
No, at the time it did matter.
I know what you mean. I'm just messing with you.
But like, we haven't even. There's some stuff I want to. We haven't even gotten into the fourth and 1. Like, I know we're kind of going all over the place today, but like I said, we didn't have any of this organized. We're about as prepared as Kentucky was Saturday running.
Yeah, I mean that's. Here's the thing, Jordan. Here's what wrapped everything up and put a bow on that game for me on Saturday. Because, I know you said you went back and watched the game at home now, but if watching live, it was really. I mean, obviously in the moment it wasn't funny, but now it's kind of funny. They interviewed Stoops going into the fourth quarter, and they asked him like, how do you get back in the game? What's going on? Stoops, admitted that the performance was embarrassing. He said it's embarrassing. He's like, we just gotta, he said he said like we gotta find our way back into the game, do this, do that. They cut back to the game, first play of the fourth quarter, interception.
That was the pick six, yeah.
It was the pick six. I mean, it just put the perfect bow on what that game was overall.
Yeah. So what are your as we move into this Georgia game a little bit, what do you want to see? Because I think we all know the outcome already.
Yeah.
Going into the season, none of us predicted a win, except for maybe Matt Sack. I can't remember.
I think Matt did.
Man, I bet he's kicking himself right now, ain't he?
I bet.
But so just like what Sunday morning when you wake up and you reality hits you, what do you need to see from this game to be able to look forward and be like, okay, this is a team that I can at least feel confident going into a game where Kentucky is favored in.
Yeah, I think we've kind of already mentioned it for me. And this is going to sound well. I hope they had fun. I don't mean like that, but I just hope they show fight, and then I hope no one gets injured. Which sounds really kind of basic and cliche for a game like this, but that's really what I just want to see the most, because obviously a game like what happened on Saturday can really take out all the fight in a team. And so I just want to see some fight from the guys on Saturday, and then I just want to get out of that stadium and not be injured going into some games that we can actually win down the road, like Vandy, Auburn, Florida, etc.
Kentucky. Last I looked, Kentucky is a 24-point dog. Do they cover?
No.
You don't think they cover? I am close to putting that down. Georgia's gonna. I think they're gonna beat up on the Cats a little bit. Is it like do you think 24 points is respectable if they keep them to that?
Yeah. If we're able to cover like right at 24 or a little under, I'll be satisfied. I think that'll be a decent showing. I was thinking about it while you were talking earlier. I was thinking of what I would give as my new final score prior to off season or the fall camp. Now I'm thinking a good old 38-3 score.
That sounds like a Georgia Kentucky game. So
yeah.
With that being said, man, I just want to wrap this up. Thank everybody for listening live. It's been a fun show given the circumstances. I think this has been a good, Braden, I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. Like, this is probably like I said, given the circumstances, this is probably like the best I think we could have had this podcast.
Yeah.
We weren't prepared. Kentucky wasn't prepared, and we both came out alive and looking for the next week. So with that being said, thank everybody for listening. Braden, thank you for reminding me of 2021, the last time I had any confidence in a Mark Stoops team. So
I was very misheaded. Well, since that season no longer exists, I just have to make sure that people know that it happened.
Exactly. That was a year. It was right after 2020. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Tim, for producing the podcast. And
I love you, Tim.
We'll see you next week as Kentucky takes on Georgia, and we hope for some kind of positive as we head out of that game.
If Kentucky wins, we are going to be taking shots the entire next podcast.
You heard it first, Braden. I will hold you to that.
I got a housewarming gift. I will pop open this bad boy on.
Oh, Crown! Now don't get too crazy with the Crown Royal. Now
I will pop this open live on YouTube next week if Kentucky wins.
It looks like it's already open.
Well, okay, it's already been popped open, but it will be. We'll have a party next week if Kentucky wins.
If Kentucky loses, we'll probably just
we'll drink that. We'll drink that.
We'll drink more of it Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm Jordan. This is Mr. Crocker. We'll see you next time on Caturday Checkdown. Thank you guys for listening. We're out.